Thank you all very much for coming this morning. I know it's kind of a crummy looking day out. I think though the fog will get burned off and be good and warm. Also, thank you to the Elks Club for hosting us this morning, and to the janitor especially, who sets up early in the morning on Saturday after the fish fry on Friday night. I'd like to welcome all of you as well as our guests, Jim Russo, Johanna Buffington, Tracy Plantier from the Dog Owners Association. Jim, did I mention your name?
Yep.
Jim Russo. And our fire chief, police chief,
Shayna Brogan, manager of the Natural Resources.
And Jackie Beebe. Back again for another run. Our officers, Mary Picars and Jen Keene. Oh, and Phil Allen, also from the Audubon Society, is going to speak to us. Okay. First on the agenda, we have the Secretary's report, and let's see, Carolyn is coming up.
Yeah, thanks. The minutes of our PRTA membership meeting from July 6th of this year were presented for your review in the summer newsletter. And it's also attached in the packet you have at your seat. I'd like to ask if there's any discussion on the minutes to the July 6th membership meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of this meeting? Yes, and you seconded it? Thank you very much. All in favor, please raise your hands. Okay. With the majority of hands raised, the motion is hereby approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. And then we have Jen Keene for our treasurer's report, and I believe you can follow along on the wall.
Good morning. So this is in your packet and it's also on the wall. The first sheet here we have is our balance sheet. As of August 14th, we have approximately $55,000 in assets, comprised of CDs and checking account. The next page. Technical difficulties. It was working before. But you can all read along in your handout. The next page is our income statement. We have a gross profit right now of about $19,000. Our expenses are pretty much what they've been every other year. Our administrator, marketing is for letters being sent out to new residents and people who aren't members of EPARDA, our newsletters, and then postage and PayPal and things like that. So right now we have a net income of about $66,547. That is expected to go down by the end of the year. We still have to pay the administrator monthly, another newsletter will go out, and our insurance. So I estimate that we'll probably have about $2,000 in net income at the end of the year. Next page is our 2018 plan versus actual budget. So this is looking back at what happened in 2018. The big differences between what our budget was and our actual spending was we were down in dues about $4,135. That was really a timing error. Our newsletter went out later than expected, so therefore when the newsletters go out, that's when we usually get our dues paid. So that was later than expected. The other big change was in community outreach. We did spend $5,000 in net income, which was the net income from both 2016 and 2017. So that was a big hit to our budget in 2018. There's some notes here, but we increased the spending on the marketing letter. We sent it to 1,000 households. We did not have to pay for the Elks rental because we prepaid in 2017 due to 2 different treasurers and not actually good. We didn't know we had paid. So that was helpful. And then the other one was the newsletters. We only sent out 3 of the 4 newsletters. So all in all, our net income was down about $6,000, but again, that was from the timing of the dues and the benches for our community outreach. Anyone have any questions on 2018? Okay, so going forward, looking at our 2020 budget, our budget has remained relatively flat for the past few years. We don't expect any big changes. We are moving down from 4 newsletters to 3 newsletters, so that will save us about $1,000 a year. The other expenses that have been every year, meeting materials, we do give a little bit of money to Windmill Weekend. That's the $200 community outreach. Members of the Chamber of Commerce. One of our big expenses is insurance, that's for board director liability and general liability, that hasn't changed. So overall, our expenses for our 2020 budget versus 2019 are expected to go down about $860, leaving us hopefully a net income of $860. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, not hearing any. I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2020 budget. Do I have a motion? All in favor? Aye. Any objections? Okay, the motion is passed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jen. Moving on to the committee reports. Our first report is from Dave Connolly, who is our yearly auditor. Dave has reviewed our books, so he has a report for us.
Good morning. I told the president before the meeting started that I was going to see if you people were awake. I was going to say, we're broke. However, that's not the case. My job, however, is not to decide whether we have lots of money or little money, but to review the process and to make sure that things are being spent and receipts are received and so forth. So the report is to Helen Kinsman, the president of EPTRA, from David P. Conley, subject annual audit calendar year 2018. I have reviewed the fiscal books for fiscal year 2018 and have found all receipts and expenditures to be in order. The fiscal records meet the standards as prescribed by general accounting standards. All checks written are supported by invoices, sales slips, or contracts. The treasurer uses an accounting software package, and this allows for an auditor to see all expenditures quickly and to align them with the monthly bank statements. It provides the association with all the report it needs to ensure the association that its money is being properly spent. David P. Conley, Auditor. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, our second committee report is going to be from Larry Pasco, who is chairman of the Community Outreach Group.
Good morning, everybody. As you've seen on today's agenda, EPTRA, according to its bylaws and policies, donates 50% of its income after operating expenses to organizations that benefit all Eastham taxpayers. This year, the recipients are the Eastham Historical Society, the Eastham 400 Group, and the Norset Light Preservation Society. And everything is in order. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. And as for the Eastham 400 group, we're going to be hearing more about that a little later from Jim Russo. Jean Tierney is going to come for nominations for the next 2-year term.
Good morning, everyone, and to Mr. Pasco, who lived in Japan for many years, Ohio gozaimasu. Okay. Anyhow, this is an off-year election. This is an off-year election, and so there's only one candidate, and the election committee recommends June Morris be re-elected to the board. And have any questions or any nominations from the floor? In that case, I would like a motion to, if somebody give me a motion to re-elect June Morris as a member of the board.
So moved.
Okay. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And June, do you want to stand up so everybody can see you? There we are, right in front. Okay, thank you.
Right in front. Thank you, June. Okay, for our speakers, as you see, we have 4 people who are going to speak to us regarding different areas of interest in the town of Eastham. Tracy Plantier is our first speaker. She is from the Eastham Dog Owners Association. She also has a table over there with a pretty cute looking black lab.
I would have brought the real thing, but I wasn't sure if he was allowed in here. He's my great representative. If you stop back at our table, he's the guy on the business card. So anyway, thank you for having me. I am actually a part-time Eastham resident. I joined the dog organization 8 years ago when my dog was a puppy, and I started walking in Wiley Park and met a lot of lovely, lovely people there that actually were part of the dog organization. And my first thought was, how cool is Eastham that it has a dog organization? Like, that's mind-blowing. It's a dog organization. So the coolest thing is, we are right now the only dog organization on Cape Cod. So we're very unique. But just stay tuned, because Orleans, if everybody's paying attention, Orleans is in the process of trying to create their dog organization, which we're helping them with. And that really helps, because our mission is to promote responsible dog ownership and to promote partnerships with agencies like the town of Eastham to create a really good, strong dog awareness, dog education, which all promotes having a happy, healthy community, happy, healthy dog owners, happy, healthy dogs in Eastham. So let me tell you just a little bit about what we do. The organization's been around since 2006. I actually didn't have a dog in 2006, didn't know about the organization in 2006, but I actually met a wonderful gentleman here that was setting up for the meeting today, Tom Shea. He actually let me know he was a past president. He was also a part-time resident at the time. And so I think it's pretty cool that part-time residents are part of the organization. You don't actually have to be a full-time resident to be part. We actually have members from Truro to Harwich, which I also think is extremely cool, that our word has spread farther than I've ever even thought it would. So some of the things that we do, which one of them I'm super proud of, is called Lost Dog Network. You'll see our big yellow sign back at our table. So one of the services that we provide is when people lose their dogs, they call our number, and we actually help assist them in finding their dog. We help through social media, we help through trained, experienced people that help understand how to look for dogs and where they might be hiding, look for tracks in the sand, etc. So we do that, and we are literally, as of the 15th of this month, up to 95 calls on that phone number this year. That is huge for us, as you can imagine. When I first started helping with Lost Dog, I think our record in the first few years I was doing was 100 calls. That was a full year, 100 calls. And we're 95, and we're halfway through a little over halfway through the year. The other thing that we do is the emergency shelter. So if there's a hurricane or other bad weather event, when the emergency shelter opens in our area at Nauset High School, our organization is actually responsible for hosting the pet component, so that people that have pets at home will safely evacuate and won't stay home because their pet's not welcome. So that is another service that we provide. The other thing that we do is we provide a buddy scholarship. So every year we give a student that is looking to work with animals from our area. They have to be a Nauset High School student. And we give that student a scholarship every year if they're looking to work and further their studies, to study to work with animals. So that's an annual scholarship that we do, and we do that in memory. Anyone can donate to that scholarship. 100% of the donations go to the scholarship, and that usually people give money to remember someone's dog that has passed, or somebody that is really strongly working with animals, etc., or a family friend that has passed that loves animals. And then we do a lot of fun events. You'll see us at all the Eastham events like Hands on the Arts Festival, Windmill Weekend. We like to march in the parade, which is coming up soon, so look for us there. We usually have a bunch of dog owners with their dogs marching, and the only year that we really had a problem is the year that they put the cannons right behind us. I think we started with like 30 or 40 dogs, and I think by the end there might have been 12 left. The dogs just couldn't make it with all those cannons going off behind them. So that's a little bit about the organization. We love being in the town of Eastham. We love working. Just a couple of new things that we did this year is, coyotes are on everyone's mind for keeping pets safe. We actually started doing an educational talk. We did our first one last fall in October at the Eastham Library about how to keep pets safe. We did another one in April in P-Town because we're trying to spread the word all over the Cape that it is very possible to coexist with coyotes and keep your pet safe. You just need a little bit of knowledge, that's all. And the other thing that we did was we did our first microchip verification clinic this year to make sure that dogs that people believed had microchips actually did, and that they were working, and that they were registered and had updated information. And that was actually a fairly last minute event that we did as we came into the 4th of July week. 4th of July week is very tough on lost dogs. A lot of dogs are lost because of fireworks. And so we wanted to make sure going into that week that there was identification on dogs, awareness to keep dogs close. And so we did that verification clinic. We got, I think it was 15 or 16 dogs. And out of those 15 or 16 dogs, we actually found one that we could not find the microchip, and another one where the information wasn't updated. And that dog then was able to get, the owner was able to get it updated. So that's a little bit about who we are. We would love to have you. If you have a dog, a grand dog, you do not have to be a member of ours to make use of our services. We're happy to help anywhere that we can. If you do join us though, and we'd love to have new members, your membership, if you join us, will actually carry all the way through next year. So special deal for part-time taxpayers. All right, thank you very much for having us. And please stop by the table, ask us any questions, love to answer them for you.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting, lots of important information. If you are a dog owner, or if you aren't a dog owner and happen to see a dog that is obviously missing, lost, whatever like that. Next we have Johanna Buffington from the Eastham Conservation Foundation.
Great, thank you, and thanks for having me. And I want to start off with the dog thing. I don't have a dog, but I need to join for multiple reasons. I love other people's dogs, but we also have a small rental cottage, and we allow people to bring their dogs. And I have met the greatest dogs. Sometimes I remember the people, but some of that literature I have in there, and they have really appreciated. And people say, "Wow, Eastham is so." It's great for dogs, so thank you for that. I'm the clerk for our local land trust, the Eastham Conservation Foundation. We are all volunteer. And Bill Allen is one of our trustees as well. He'll be following me with a few words after. We're not to be confused with the Town Conservation Commission, which is the regulatory committee on the town and program, but we do work with the commission, and we work with a number of different partners. My other hat, and Bill wears multiple hats too, I volunteer for Audubon. I'm on the Open Space Committee, which is a town committee to look for and preserve open land in Eastham and take care of it. We are potentially working with the 400 committee also, and we work with other land trusts. Because we're all volunteer and we don't have lots of income, partnership actually makes sense for many reasons, but for economics and other things. So we partner with a lot of groups. Our local land trust protects about 300 acres of land here in Eastham. There's a map up there that has the National Seashore protected land, the town-owned protected space. The orange color is Eastham Conservation Foundation, and there are private lands that are protected with conservation restrictions. So you can look at that map and also see that on our website, which is easthamcf.org. About 100 of our 300 acres are upland. 200 are wetlands and marsh areas and coastal areas, but we have some beautiful upland areas. Unlike some of the surrounding land trusts like Orleans and Harwich, they have wonderful trail areas. We have a couple trails on our own land, but we more partner with town open space to get people on the town open space trails, and some of them can move on to trails on our lands, but we do invite the public to some of those. We have a couple of our recent acquisitions were actually purchased through fundraising and grants, but most of our lands protected are from people donating their land for conservation reasons. And if we purchase it, it's raising funds and grant money, and normally it's at a bargain rate, and a seller can then, as with 50 Crosby Village, which has a little beach on Herring Pond, the owners actually were, because of the very low price that they sold it to the Eastham Conservation Foundation for, they qualified for a $75,000 tax credit from the state of Massachusetts, and you don't have to be a Massachusetts resident to get that. So they got money from the state and a tax deduction for the difference in what they sold it to us for versus what it was appraised at. So there are tax benefits for protecting land, if that's in your interest. On our website too, we have the different ways you can try to protect and conserve your own land. We have our annual meeting coming up actually next Saturday, August 24th, 4 o'clock at the Chapel in the Pines. And we invite anyone and everyone to come to that. It would be helpful to register on our website just so we know the numbers, but it doesn't cost anything, and we'll have refreshments. And Mark Faraday, who is the bird guy from Audubon, is actually going to be speaking at our meeting on wildlife in Eastham, and mostly non-human wildlife, I think, given his Mark. We would love to have volunteers. We don't have a real organized setup yet for finding things to do, but we have a lot of land stewardship needs. So if you know of a conservation parcel that you always walk by or near, we'd love to have you volunteer to help us watch it and cut bittersweet and pick up trash or anything that you can do to help. It would be most helpful. So again, stop by, get a brochure, and join the Dog Owners Association and join the Eastham Conservation Foundation. And thank you very much.
All right. Our next speaker is Bill Allen from the Audubon Society, and as Johanna just mentioned, he also wears several hats, as does she.
Thank you. I started the terrapin conservation program here about 17 years ago, and under Mass Audubon, it was licensed as a threatened species. And fortunately, we've been quite successful. But in that success means that we have some problems, primarily roadkill. There are two issues with the terrapins and their decline. One was the heavy predation. We solved that by protecting nests, getting the recruitment of hatchlings up. So that's no longer an issue, but roadkill is an issue. And now I'm going to transition from Mass Audubon to Eastham Conservation Foundation. Our focus obviously is Eastham. Mass Audubon is much broader. So there are a lot of projects here that weren't getting done, and one was the focus on roadkill. So Eastham Conservation Foundation stepped in with the help of Natural Resources, and we established some fencing. If you travel the bridge area on Bridge Road during June and July, you might have seen fencing on all sides of the road. That fencing is to keep the terrapins in the marsh. Now, one of the problems we had before where we had fencing is that, okay, they came up, hit the fence, and then went left to right and around the fence, and went back to the road in a different place. So, to solve that problem, with the help, again, of Natural Resources and CONSCOM, we established 7 nesting sites, what we call turtle gardens. And that was the effort of Eastham Conservation Foundation. It's kind of an example that we're transitioning from just land ownership and land stewardship to conservation programs, helping the wildlife that lives in Eastham. So by protecting and establishing those nesting areas, we went from 11 roadkill to 2. And in the areas that we protected, we had 0 this year versus 9 last year. So these kind of programs that focus on the problem, get the resources, and we're quite successful. We're also looking at monarchs. We had several programs to promote the planting of milkweed, which the monarchs need for the caterpillars to eat and grow. So that will continue, and I just mentioned that, without milkweed, you don't have monarchs. And this year looks like a good year for monarchs. See a lot of them around. So another example of the program that Eastham Conservation is involved in. And to add what Johanna said, we need your help. We're only going to be successful as support we get from the community, both financial and in particular your labor. A lot of good programs that you can help with. As she says, we've got some issues with connecting and communicating, so we'll solve those. But go up on our website or get a brochure or sign up over there. We need your help to really be fully successful. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, that brings us to our final speaker, Jim Russo, who is Executive Director of the Chamber. Am I correct? I got that right?
You're correct, but I'm here actually on
You
behalf
are here
of
with
the
another
Eastham
hat.
400.
Yeah. I realize that.
But thank you.
But I thought maybe people would know your name from that.
I try and keep a low profile. That's not always easy these days. So, I thank you for having me speak today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Eastham 400 and what we do. I want to extend a special thanks to the offices and your entire group for the $200 donation that you've given to the 400, and it will help us greatly. We're going to be out there looking to raise a lot of funds to make all of the programs that we'll be talking about a reality, and that's all coming together really nicely. In 2020, next year, we're going to commemorate the 400th anniversary of the Mayflower Pilgrims' first encounter with the Nauset tribe of the Wampanoag Nation, and honoring the Native peoples already living here and the genesis of the American legacy, which all started right here, in particular First Encounter Beach. After almost 2 years of brainstorming sessions amongst residents, organizations, historians, advisors, and consultants, we morphed into what is now the Eastham 400 Commemoration Committee, more commonly known as the Eastham 400. And by decree of a majority consent at the May 2018 town meeting, we became an official committee of the town. Its mission is to improve the quality of life of residents and the visitor experience, and to grow the economic and environmental vitality of Eastham and Cape Cod by showcasing the historic and cultural significance of the region. The most significant historic event began on the shores of what is now known in Eastham as the first encounter of the Mayflower Pilgrims with the Nausets. Our group is committed to educating the world about Eastham's unique role in that story and sharing the heritage and culture of the Native peoples living here long before the Pilgrims landed. We have a rich and diverse history, and we've put it into a number of programs that are going to be offered. And actually, the first of those programs is going to be next Friday, the 23rd, at the Schoolhouse Museum. The author and scholar Ian Saxene was commissioned through a grant that the town got through the library and granted by the Mass Cultural Council and the National Endowment for Humanities to rewrite the story of the first encounter. And it's going to come all the way back to 1646, when the Pilgrims returned here to Eastham and to start a town. So some of the programs, that first one, as I said, is by the author. It's a scholar that was selected. It's a great narrative. We've just started reviewing the book now, and editing is going on as we speak, so we'll be bringing that to print very, very shortly. But we're especially proud of that. The work in itself and that whole thing brings together a series of 6 events that will happen between this coming Friday, the 23rd, right into December. And it's going to talk about a number of the different things that have happened here and occurred in Eastham. The first, as I said, is a tea. In September 15th, it's going to be First Encounters before the first encounter. We have in October, memorializing the first encounter, which is going to be a walk and word tour of the 2 tablets that presently exist and what they have to say on it, and bringing those up into the 21st century and making what they say relevant to today's society. Also in October is Immigration Ideas from 1620. It's a symposium of leaders of today's immigrant communities and how we can rewrite the social contracts that exist now. November is Beyond 2020, what will happen, and it's going to be a workshop with young adults. In December, we'll have a communal vision for tomorrow's community. So these programs keep building on each other. So it's getting a lot of traction, a lot of work, and I think that it's going to bring a new story for Eastham, and people understanding just what happened in the relationship that we have with the people that were here thousands and thousands of years before the Pilgrims landed. In December, we're also going to have a screening of the documentary about the rediscovery of the Wampanoag language. It's called We Still Live Here. It was produced by the Wampanoags up in Mashpee. We're working very closely with them on everything that we do, consulting with them. They're giving us insight on a lot of the work that's, that we're building into our programs this year. So, and then next summer we have a number of programs that will be going on. We'll have a sunset series, and that's going to be from Memorial Day to Labor Day. We'll have, just before sunset, somebody at First Encounter Beach will be presenting a 5 or 10 minute little story or incidents or things that have happened that are relevant to East Ham's history. In particular, the First Encounter, but not necessarily just that, but more about East Ham's entire history. We're also planning on doing a campfire on First Encounter Beach that'll be weekly during the summer in July and August. It should be great. There'll be storytelling. We have some wonderful people that have been engaged with that over at the National Seashore every Wednesday. They're also going to be helping us put that together. So these are great programs, they're family programs that a lot of people can get involved in and enjoy. But we also have things like Genealogy Day. People check, finding out their, their ancestry and how it relates to people here in East Ham. And we'll end it just like we started. This December 8th, there'll be a number of programs. There'll be we'll start in the morning, very early in the morning, at First Encounter Beach with shouts of lament at a sunrise service. There'll be services later in the day at the churches, because we're very involved with a number of the churches that are here involved with this project. We'll also have a civic get together in the afternoon that will be brief presentations, followed by some refreshments over it, and that'll be between the library, and then we'll go over to the Chapel in the Pines to get some refreshments, maybe see what some ale was that the Pilgrims drank, and maybe that's been brought up into the 21st century also. But it should be a good time, and then there'll be a sunset gathering for morning at the Indian Sharpening Rock over at Skiff Hill. So there's a lot of things that will be going on. We'll end the year in December 8th of 2020 with a final commemoration. And so it should be a great time. There'll be a lot of other programs. The Historical Society is working on more programs that they're going to present, and we're doing the same. So we hope you'll all enjoy some of these and share some of these moments with us. We have a few things that we've been doing to raise money, and because we'd like to put together all these programs, one of which is bringing the shallop. And the shallop is the sail and / rowboat. It's kind of a workboat that they used, and that they reassembled from the Mayflower. And they sailed around the coast, and they discovered, and that's what when they landed at First Encounter Beach, what is now First Encounter Beach, it was in search of more food and water. And so we're talking about bringing this reproduction of a shallop here to East Ham, and hopefully be able to have some excursions on it. We're planning on having it here for a week to 2 weeks. So it should be a lot of fun putting together things like that. And I think a lot of people will enjoy seeing and being a part of this historic event. So again, I thank you. If you'd like to know more about it, we're going to be over at the table. We're going to have an ornament that we'll be selling. That's of the, you can see a black and white version on the back of your programs, but This ornament will sell for $20, and it's done by the same people that produce the ornaments for the White House Christmas tree. So I think, it's really great quality. It's going to be a good gift, and hopefully we'll raise a lot of money with in sales with this. Yeah, Joanne's has it. And come and visit us over at the table, and you'll see it firsthand. We'll also be doing posters of a montage that was commissioned that has all of the historic sites in Eastham that were pertinent for this occasion. So again, thank you so much, and we'll see you with all these programs starting this coming Friday. Take care.
Thank you very much, Jim. I know that the 400th anniversary of the landing of the Mayflower is something that's fairly important to probably all of us, because first of all, we're here on Cape Cod for a number of reasons, but also because of its historic value in terms of our ancestors and people that came before us and eventually settled the rest of our country. I'm especially interested to hear about all the activities that they have planned so far, and I'm sure there's going to be several over next summer when we're all back in force, so to speak, as part-time residents. The second part of our speaker agenda involves speeches from town administrators, and I'm going to give this microphone to Jackie Beebe, our town administrator, first, and she will conduct the rest of her speakers.
Thank you, Helen. Good morning. You guys are such good listeners. I feel like we need something else in the middle, but we're going to try and keep it streamlined, because I think the best part about our coming here is to get your questions and your concerns too. So I'm going to let my staff do their presentations, and while they're doing it, if you have questions, write them down on the cards, and we'll try and start answering them so we don't keep them all till the end. But first, I'm going to introduce my fire chief, Kent Fahrenkopf, sorry, about the K there. But before he gets up, I just, I'm so lucky and privileged. First of all, I had the best teacher in the world in Sheila Vanderhoff, and then I have been gifted with a phenomenal staff. And my two chiefs, Ann Shana, I wanted to introduce you to her this morning for the first time, but they're all fabulous, and they're working very hard for the town, and I do want to give them credit and thank them for their incredible support of me and of the town. But Chief Fahrenkopf is going to talk about maybe sharks.
Good morning, all. Thank you for having me. I want to talk to you a little bit about sharks and about shark preparation that we had to deal with. I'm a 10th generation Capey, and I never thought in my 37 years career as being a firefighter all the way up through the ranks that I would ever be developing a shark response policy. So what did I do about that? Well, I looked at the big areas. I looked at Southern California, I looked at Florida, I looked at Australia, the people that have been dealing with it for many, many years. And we put a policy together. We introduced it as short and sweet. If anybody knows about working with policies, the shorter the policy, the more it works. So we put the policy together and made it work. We shared that policy with a lot of local departments that have picked up off of that policy and also used it. So, not to be graphic, but if somebody is going to survive a shark attack, the biggest thing we have to do is stop the bleeding. We can respond, we can get helicopters, we can do everything else. If you do not have any blood in your system, no matter what the medical treatment is, you're not going to make it. So that's really what we have to look at. And everybody heard about the Stop the Bleed program? Pretty much. That was developed, and it wasn't developed for shark attacks. It was developed for intercity areas where there's a high rate of stabbings and gunshots. It was taught in the high schools to be able to give these kids that are out there on the street with these gangs and these things going on the ability to try to stop bleeding. So that's where it originated from, but it fell into the shark attack area here where it's the same thing. We need to stop the bleeding for somebody to live. We were very fortunate. We had I think I have 5 instructors on my department, and we have reached out and trained 229 people since last year. And we are also very proactive on the town side, where we were very driven to get all town employees trained. So we did that through the spring, and through the association, we were able to buy Stop the Bleed kits for all town vehicles. So if you see a dump truck on the side of the road, more than likely that individual is trained in Stop the Bleed, and within his glove box or wherever in that truck, there is a Stop the Bleed kit. Now, a Stop the Bleed kit is very, very simple. It's a tourniquet, a pair of gloves, and what they call quick clot, which is a type of gauze that has a treatment on it that will stop bleeding. So it's all contained within the kit. I highly recommend you reach out and try to get one of the Stop the Bleed classes. It's very simple. It's about an hour. Get one of these kits. Your likelihood of using it on a shark attack is very slim. Where you might use this is your neighbor cuts his leg with a chainsaw. You come across a motor vehicle accident, something like that. And it's great training with grandchildren and all that stuff. Have the kit available and have the training. We were also very fortunate with the Stop the Bleed kits. Prior to the shark issue, we had to look at something that I really didn't think I would ever look at in my career either, and this is active shooters. Okay, within the schools, within the churches, within the restaurants, wherever it may be. We had to look at that. And we reached out to Cape Association for a grant, and they purchased for us a huge amount of Stop the Bleed, the anticoagulant type of gauze, the tourniquets and all that. We now have ballistic vests and ballistic helmets for my members if we have to operate in that. So it's kind of an overlapping situation where those supplies can be used for both types of emergencies. And where we ran into this too, we ran into an issue. They had an incident in Provincetown where somebody had great blood loss. The Provincetown ambulance is coming down the Cape, headed this way, and they're stopping in each department to get bleeding supplies, this anticoagulant type of gauze. And everybody was giving them their 2 or 3 packages that they had, because that's all we had prior to these events. So what we've done now, we've stockpiled them. We can go out and meet a Truro ambulance on Route 6, give them a box that is loaded with this gauze, these tourniquets, and all the other supplies. And if we have to go to a situation, we take these with us so we're able to treat numerous people. So it kind of overlapped. The other issue we had is we had communication problems. With our radio system, which is an 800 megahertz radio system, when we get near the beaches, we lose signal. We had a hot incident on Coast Guard Beach a couple of years ago. We could not communicate off the beach to give a report and get the resources that we needed. So we looked at a repeater, and what a repeater is, it takes our portable radio signals when we talk on it, and it kicks it into a repeater, and it boosts the power up, and then it sends it out. So we just installed one at Coast Guard Beach. It should be going in operation very shortly. We're just waiting on FCC approval on the frequency, but our radios have been programmed and the repeater has been programmed over. And we're hoping, it's a trial, we're hoping we're going to be able to take care of Coast Guard Beach and Nauset Light Beach with the same repeater. If we can't cover Nauset Light Beach, we're going to install another repeater next year once Nauset Light gets a building up that we can put the repeater in. So our other issues we're having on communication is on the bay side is Sunken Meadow Beach. We have limited cell phone reception over there. So we are installing a cellular call box that should hopefully be going in the next couple of weeks. It's completely independent of any power, works off solar. It says emergency. It's the same type of box they have at Coast Guard Beach and Lighthouse if you've seen them. But Nauset Light if you've seen the boxes that the National Park Service has put up. The National Park Service, they control all of our beaches on the ocean side. So they do things a little bit different, but we work jointly with them, we trained with them. We did the Stop the Bleed program for all of their lifeguards and their ranges and all that stuff. So we're pretty much all in tune. That repeater that we installed works with the Park Service, with the Eastham Police Department and the Eastham Fire Department, so we can all operate off the same frequency with that radio. The other thing we've done is we are training a surf rescue crew. I have 9 members of my department that are going through the training. We've also purchased a surf rescue boat. We have issues with the tides here. no matter which side of the Cape it is, the bay or the ocean side. We have times when the bay, you've got a quarter mile or a half mile until you get to water. So we've purchased this rigid hull inflatable boat that we can put on an easy load trailer and we can push it out to the water's edge to be able to get in. But there's a lot of training that goes along with that, and a lot of equipment. But we're working on that, and I would hope within the next couple of months we'll be up to the level where we can respond with that issue, with those resources. We were very fortunate this year, and I want to thank Administrator Beebe for this. She worked very closely with the state legislature and the reps, and they got us a grant for the 6 lower towns, and we were lucky enough to get, I think it was $88,000 in resources. So all of the stuff that we've done, these repeaters, these call boxes, the surf response, all that stuff was paid with state funds. So I want to thank her for that, because that really took the edge off of us and helped us. The other thing we purchased a drone. I was very fortunate. One of our taxpayers donated a drone a couple of years ago, and I'm very fortunate also that my deputy's a pilot and he has his drone permit. So we've been using the drone that was donated, and we saw that we need to get a little bit more professional level drone, further response and further capabilities. So we just received that. We're training with that, but the interesting thing with that drone is we now have infrared capabilities with the drone. So if we have somebody in the water, somebody in the woods, somebody out in the marsh, someplace that we need to get to, we can go out now and find them with heat-seeking capabilities. So that's coming to, like I said, there's a lot of training. It's a very technical drone and all those. So it's another great resource. So that's about it, all I have on the shark issue. I hope we make it through the year. I hope the whole Cape makes it through the year without an event. I just want to leave you with a couple things that are important to myself and important to the organization. I have a great bunch of people down there that are very dedicated and work at a very professional level. But I need to put out there that we really need to make sure people have house numbers. Okay, it is very, very difficult for us to find a location if we don't have a house number. And street signs, the town is working on a policy or a bylaw, I'm not sure where it's at right now, for some type of street signs to come down the line here. That will be coming out shortly. The other thing too is, please, if you leave your home, if there's a babysitter there or somebody that's renting the property or a guest, a family member, leave your address, because a lot of times these people don't know where they are, and it makes it very difficult. They say they're on East Ham, off of Campground Beach. Well, that really doesn't tell us. We lose time looking for people because they're not sure exactly where they're staying, the address. So simply post it someplace, a babysitter, leave that information with them. It seems simple, but it really causes a lot of issues. Take a Stop the Bleed course. They're out there. We'll have another one in September. We just ran one a few weeks ago. And also take a CPR class. You put all that stuff together, it makes for a safe environment, whether you be at home or out on the street. So, thank you very much.
And next, our police chief, Ed Kohaywick. At least I got your name.
Nice job. I have the tough name, and she did a wonderful job on that. Well, she's been doing it a lot longer, I guess. So. Good morning. I was sitting there listening to all the speakers and saying hello to some people I've seen every year, and it reminded me of back in 2009 when Sheila Vanderhoff was here, and I was just offered the job here in East Ham, and she said, I know you're not really working here yet, but could you come and meet with the part-time taxpayer group and just introduce yourself and talk to them? And I remember leaving here and I said to my wife, if the group there is the indicator of what East Ham is like, it's going to be a great run. And I say that honestly. You're a really great group, and you've always been very warm and welcoming and interested. You have a genuine interest in what we do, the services we offer, not just my department, but the entire staff here, and it really is appreciated, so I just wanted to mention that. I wanted to just go over some things that are happening in the department, some issues we're confronting, some we continue to confront, like the traffic woes that I know many of you have contacted me about, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the solutions that we're looking into to try to deal with some of these things. I wanted to mention about emergency management, which is part of my responsibility, particularly with sheltering. I will tell you that we just went to our, what we call a Connex box. It's a big storage unit, and myself, along with many of the Barnstable County workers and the folks from the county, went through along with the Animal Association, Eastham Dog Owners, and cataloged, inventoried all of the equipment in there, replaced much of the medical information, equipment rather. And so everything is good to go in the event we should, God forbid, have an emergency, a hurricane where we have to open the shelters. So that is checked on. The generator, which was broken a year and a half ago at the high school, is now up and running. And so all is good to go in the event we need to use the shelter. One of the good things now is because we have a lot of water running in many of the households, we don't confront the problems we had with people who had wells and were having issues with water, etc. So that helps tremendously with respect to people being able to get along in the event that the electricity is out. The other thing that has been enhanced is response by Eversource is phenomenal compared to what it was even 4 or 5 years ago. They've really upped their game. So that assists all of us, both police and fire and DPW, because the length that these power outages are out are not nearly what they used to be back even 6, 7 years ago. So that's really, really a good thing. If you haven't signed up for the Code Red program, please do so. We give all kinds of different and important messages through our department, not just related to emergencies in the event of a hurricane or other tornadoes that come through, as we saw a few weeks ago, but also important messages about traffic changes. We gave one, I think, yesterday to a selected area about one of the ponds that's having an algae problem. So there's a lot of good information. If you haven't signed up, you can see me after and I'll talk you through what you need to do. But it's all web-based. Once you're in there, you'll get all of these messages. We don't kill you with a lot of messages, but when we send one, it's good information and we think it'll be helpful to you. Some department updates. We hired a new officer who's currently going to our first Cape Cod Police Academy, which is at the Otis Air Force Base in Sandwich, and he's in his 6th week of a 22-week program. I personally am deeply involved in that since I sit on the Law Enforcement Council for the Cape Cod Chiefs, and I'm their training coordinator. So I've been there a lot, helping the directors and some of the instructors with what's going on there. But he's doing a good job. And we look forward to getting him back somewhere around the end of November is when he graduates. And so we hope that this is the start of a local training regimen that we'll be able to do each year at Otis. And it's exciting to do it locally and to have mostly Cape officers being trained there. We do have some off-Cape people in that class, but only after we have fulfilled our obligations for our Cape department. So it's really an exciting time for us from training. We recently attained our reaccreditation, and what that means is the Mass Council of Police Accreditation came in, spent 2 days with myself, one of my sergeants, and my deputy, and went through all of our policies, procedures, guidelines, took tours, interviewed officers, interviewed myself, essentially put us through the ringers. It's a nervous time to make sure you're fulfilling all of the obligations, but we were notified last week that after reviewing all of the notes of the assessors, we have attained it. We'll be getting our official award in September. So I'm really excited about that. Once again, it's the 2nd time. The first time's easy. Thank you. Thank you. But that'll also help with our insurance rates, because it shows that we're meeting all of the professional standards as recognized nationally. So excellent job by my staff getting that. I want to talk a little bit about mental health and what that means for our officers. We are confronting a lot of issues with folks that we respond to who are in crisis. It's probably the #1 thing that our law enforcement, not just here at Eastham, but all over the country, and specifically on Cape Cod, are confronting. All ages, all types of people are having mental health problems. And that translates many times into substance abuse, domestic violence, suicide, and that is a big, big issue for us in terms of knowing how to efficiently, effectively, and with empathy go into a situation and try to deconflict what could be a very, very difficult thing. Just last week, 2 of our officers had to go in to a house where a man was threatening to kill himself with a hunting knife. They were able to talk to him, de-escalate the situation without using any kind of force, and get him to a mental health evaluation. Our officers now are going through what we call a CCIT training. Slowly, each of our officers are being put through this 1-week course, which goes through the steps to talk about the services we provide here on Cape Cod, but also how to deconflict, how to show concern, how to talk to people that are in crisis, and it's really, really a positive step towards offering quality services to people in crisis. And I think it's just the beginning of a trend that we're seeing all over the country, and our response is crucial to make sure that we're effectively able to handle those situations. So I did want to mention that because I think it's a big, big thing. And a couple other things real quick. We are going to have some marijuana dispensaries in town. It's a matter of time. They're going through the licensing through the Cannabis Control Commission and through local authorities. We're working closely with Jackie and with the board to make sure that they're meeting all of the mandates, not just with the Cape Cod Commission, but with the local officials. One of the concerns we have from a law enforcement perspective, and one of the things Governor Baker's been talking about and is trying to put out a bill to recognize drug recognition experts for police officers who are specifically trained in recognizing people who are under the influence, because that's one of the problems that is so different from alcohol, where there's a threshold of sobriety at 0.08. With marijuana, with THC, there is no threshold, if you will. Everyone reacts differently. With that comes a very much big concern for people who are driving and using marijuana. We're hearing more and more about social consumption. That's a whole nother thing where you're going to see these parlors opening up where people could go, like you would go to a local bar, and go there and smoke and ingest marijuana there and then get in their car and drive away. It's a major concern. It's something to keep your eyes on. I would ask for your support to recognize and to allow these officers who take this DRE training to be recognized in the courts. There's a big, big argument amongst a lot of differing viewpoints and opinions about whether a police officer's DRE training should be recognized and allowed to be used to support an arrest on probable cause for being under the influence of marijuana or other drugs. And it's a big point of contention. So I would ask you to just pay attention to it, support it if you can, because it will assist us in doing our jobs. And the last thing I want to mention is dogs. It's a big part of our job here at the police department in terms of dealing with dogs that are loose, dealing with dogs that are lost. We work closely with the Eastham Dog Owners Association, but it's really an area that has evolved over the last 5 years, where we're seeing our officer, Andy Williams, who is our assigned ACO, Animal Control Officer, spending an inordinate amount of time dealing with these dog issues. Although she does a wonderful job, what I'm finding is a big part of her job now is taken away from being a police officer in patrol. She's spending it doing dog work. So I've talked to Jackie. That's something we're going to look at as we move into the new budget cycle, of potentially having a designated officer to deal with the dog situations, both in terms of enforcement, but also assisting and working with the different groups in towns. It's necessary, and I think it's time that we look at that, even if it's on a part-time basis. But I think it's needed. So that's something I'm going to be pushing for, looking for when we get into our new budget cycle. And before I go, I do want to mention that traffic is still a major concern for us. Dealing with the speeding in town, it's something that officers, they're tired of listening to me say, get out there, get out there. I just got a new radar system. I got a new LiDAR, which is a different technology, but it helps with our ability to enforce. Going forward in the new fiscal year, I want to also look at the potential of putting some of those temporary speed announcement signs on some of our streets that are problem roads. I think that'll slow people down. And also on some selected roads, I've talked to our DPW director about maybe not speed bumps, but speed humps, which are slower, more gradual, but I believe that'll assist in slowing some people down, especially on some of the beach roads. So that's all I have. It's always a pleasure seeing all of you, and have a good rest of your summer. Thank you. I've got a compliment. I like that. Twice last year, an officer in a car slowed down and asked
If everyone was okay.
if everyone was okay.
They were out on the road at night.
Oh, okay. And she appreciates that. Good.
They're out there paying attention.
We want our officers to engage the public. Some of you may have met some of our officers. I'm spoiled. I have a wonderful group of guys and ladies right now. I say to Jackie all the time, I don't know, but I'm blessed. It's taken 10 years, but we've got a great group. So I'm fortunate, and you're fortunate because they serve you.
That were for Ed. One was speed limit considerations, and I think he talked about at beaches specifically. We are looking at the roads going towards the beaches and the speed limits there, and those sort of semi-permanent speed hump things. So taking a look at different options. But I think it is startling when you're walking and a car comes on you. Even going 30 miles an hour, it's fast. So we get that. And then a specific question about a flashing light at the crosswalk of Route 6 in the Methodist Church in Austin Haven. We don't have any specific plans for that, but I'll talk about it a little later. We are, my town planner, Paul Lag, and the rest of our team, Silvio, DPW superintendent, is in active talks now with DOT, who, Department of Transportation, who of course has the jurisdiction over Route 6. We're dealing very closely with them. They've been doing some studies. The Cape Cod Commission has assisted us in a traffic study, so we have more data. And as you know, that road really hasn't been touched in 40 years by the state. They are looking at it. It's coming up over the next 2 years, and we are really on it because this is our real opportunity to make some changes out there. So staff is on it, and we'll use our state reps if we need to for that one. But that's coming. And I'm going to answer other questions as I go along. But I'd like to introduce now Shana Brogan. Shana is Natural Resources and Conservation Director for the town of Eastham. So she wears many hats. She's in charge of the harbor, all of our natural resources and land management, and she serves as the town's conservation agent. Right now, she's also running some capital projects. So Here's Shannon.
Thank you. Good morning. So as Jackie said, I'm Shana Brogan, and I've worked for the town for the past 8 years. And our office is located over on Old Orchard Road, adjacent to the DPW building. So a few of the projects that our department is currently working on includes the replacement of the docks at Rock Harbor. We're also drafting a harbor and waterways management plan. We've held 2 public forums over the past year, and comments are still welcome. We're hoping to finish that plan up by December. And then we've just recently received $415,000 in grant awards from the state. So we'll be looking at coastal resiliency, some of our low-lying roadways, and then taking a comprehensive look at our shoreline management and how we can work with other towns to manage erosion. We have erosion increasing in some areas, and then we have accretion where the sand is building up in others. So we'll be taking a close look at that over the next year, and that's pretty much what we're working on. Thank you.
That was a pretty modest summary of what Shana's been doing. So she mentioned the $400,000 in grants, but those are just 2 of her many in the past couple of years. So she's also received just recently a $150,000 grant to help us do some site planning for the Harbor Master and feasibility and engineering for the Harbor Master shack at Rock Harbor, which of course means that we don't have to borrow that money. And what else did you do? Great Pond Culvert was a grant that we received from the USDA that Shana wrote. So she's been very, very productive, and all the staff has been productive with grants. We've received 3.5 million grants over the past 2 years. Basically, they're out there searching all the time, and it's getting a little taxing on our accounting and administrative departments because we're actually managing so many of these right now that I'm looking for a solution to that. But that includes some water principal forgiveness for our loans, but it's quite an impressive amount of money for a small town, and it's because each staff member is writing their own grants. Police, fire, natural resources, planning, Silvio, the DPW, it's endless. They're really doing a great job of that. So, I'm gonna get into my presentation and answer some of these questions while I go. I did an update on the water project in July, but I'll just briefly touch on it because I'm extraordinarily proud to report to you that we're, more than halfway. We've completed phase 1 and mostly completed phase 2B. We added a contract, an extra contract for phase 2B, and did 8 more roads that were in later contracts. And we've accelerated our schedule to accommodate the fact that we are under budget and ahead of schedule, so we feel like we can do some extra things. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to identify roads that have water quality issues or that particularly want the water. So if you're anxious to get it, definitely let us know or call the EPG number, and we'll try and see what we can do to move that along faster. But as of August 8th, we are $5.9 million under budget and about 18 months ahead of schedule on the water project. So for a small town. So I did have a water question. When is it coming? Okay. Oh yeah, that's a good one. When is it coming down Old Orchard? If you want to know when it's scheduled to come down your road, you can go on the town's website, click the water link, and it will definitely, you can put in your address and it will tell you. If you don't want to do that, you can just call my water clerk, Kim St. Aubin, and Kim will look it up for you, and she's at extension 3244. Right now she's at Town Hall, but the water office is soon moving to the Old Orchard Road DPW building. The village at Nauset Green, the housing development that the town has collaborated with, is been under construction since last fall. The first 4 buildings will go online for us this fall, and that's what they're going to do is get buildings out and rented 4 at a time, so 16 units at a time. And the lottery for that will be here in this building on September 5th. So it's coming out those first 16 units. They look beautiful. The community building looks beautiful. Let me answer a couple of questions. This is a Shana question. Curious as to the town's interest in buying a house adjoining the beach at Great Pond Road. There is a piece of property directly adjacent to the town beach that's for sale and has been for sale for a while. We don't like the price, but we do like the parcel, and so that's our interest. We're going to be taking a look at it. The selectmen are actually going to go out and do a site visit of it, and both the beach administrator and Shana are, positive about it, so we're moving forward with that. Update on the timeline for moving Nauset Light Road. I'm very happy to tell you that we passed through all the permitting with the National Park Service and MIPA and NEPA very swiftly, and that road is fully engineered and ready to go. We need to wait for the time constraints for conservation, so we'll probably begin constructing that road in late November of this year, weather permitting. If not, it'll be moved off to later in the winter. But it'll take about 2 weeks to do. We still have to work on moving utilities and things, but it's definitely this year, which I think it took us about 6 years to do this project. So I hate to say it. There are signs on the bay beaches about sharks. Have there been sightings, and should there be lifeguards on bay beaches? This is something that the selectmen asked us to cost out for them. And because of some of our bay beaches, what we looked at was First Encounter. Because First Encounter is so long and there are bends in First Encounter, with Massachusetts state law, you have to have 2 lifeguards at a certain distance. And so we'd have to have 22 lifeguards alone just for First Encounter Beach. So the price of that was daunting, but more daunting is finding 22 lifeguards, right? The seashore is, they want to hire 64 lifeguards a year to cover their territory, and so far they've only been able to get in 40. So that's what's happening. We don't have a lot of qualified lifeguards, and it makes perfect sense. It's a short-term, employment. It's dangerous. It's a lot of responsibility, and so we're having difficulty with that. So they have talked about it. We'll probably keep talking about it. Have there been sightings? Yes. Absolutely, a lot of them, and it looks like the Bayside, they're swimming all around the Cape, even on the Bayside. The Bayside seems to be more the nursery, and we should have more data this summer. Greg Skolmel's out there tagging sharks, and we've got a lot more data now that there are stations where they can see them and tag them. It doesn't mean that they weren't there last year. This is the thing that I think is most upsetting in the national media is, the sharks have been there. It's just we can see them and tag them and keep track of them a little better, and so I think that's causing a little more hysteria than probably the Cape needs. But what's the update on Tuesday's meeting regarding the health of Minister and Schoolhouse Ponds? Minister and Schoolhouse Ponds, the news is good. It passed through conservation. We're definitely moving towards mitigation this year on Ministers and Schoolhouse. That Jane, our Director of Environment, always makes fun of me because I call it the fish tank project, but really that's what it is. We're going to aerate it and treat it, and it's going to be healthier. Unfortunately, there was a cyanobacter bloom discovered yesterday at Schoolhouse Ministers. So for the time being, there's no swimming at Schoolhouse Ministers. That's a particular bacteria that's very ugly, very noticeable. You can really see it. It looks different than others, and it is toxic to dogs and if ingested. So we like to keep people out of the water when that's blooming. And so far, we've had one bloom a year. It just seems to move around to the different ponds, not sure why. Someone should do something about the poison ivy that is increasingly creeping into walkways and conservation areas, Fort Hill, Audubon, Wiley Park. We do. And there's currently, there is, the next question is, congratulations on Herring Pond and asking some questions, but we have this year devised and gotten through conservation a maintenance plan for all town beaches and ponds, which will allow DPW and the beach department to go in and trim and clip and do some things without asking permission every year. So that's gonna move things along, and if you've been to the ponds, you'll see that there's maintenance going on at the ponds. Some of the buoy that you see in the center is all the ponds are being monitored under Jane's wastewater program, especially Salt Pond. There's water quality stations in Salt Pond and all the other ponds, and that's what you're seeing. We have people going out, taking samples and testing those. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Someone wants us to support the repeal of the rental tax. I honestly don't know whether it would be in the town of East Hamp's best interest to do that. I think it's too early to tell, but I certainly know that it's not a popular thing, and we've gotten a lot of feedback on it, I assure you. Spraying yards for mosquitoes, does the town have regulations? Unfortunately, on private property, the town cannot ban any kind of pesticide use on private property. As a town, we have a policy, we don't use any commercial pesticides on town-owned property. The selectmen have endorsed that again at their meeting a couple of weeks ago to make that clear. The state pesticide board has an approved list of chemicals that they will let people who are licensed to apply. And it is distressing. This person is saying that, you know, her neighbor, people came in suits and sprayed the whole yard right next to her house. Well, I have 3 beehives, so if someone did that next to my house, all my bees would die. And that would be very distressing for me. So I think we have to, sort of as a community, do something about these people that claim that they can come and take all the bugs out of your yard. Because first of all, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's a waste of money, and it kills all kinds of other things that we need. So that's my personal opinion, not as town administrator. How is the dirt road, part of Hay Road, going to be maintained? We have to touch it about 4 times a year just to fill in potholes and regrade. We're plowing it in the winter. There are no plans to pave it, and as a matter of fact, as a part of that taking, we sort of made a promise to the neighborhood that we wouldn't pave it anytime soon. But if it gets bad, if you notice that it's bad, please call Silvio and he'll get the guys out there and take a look at it. Okay, I'm gonna go back to, I think the chief covered retail marijuana. We do have an appeal of the special permits that the planning board issued currently, and so that's under appeal. And I think both of those vendors, both of those new operators are still waiting for their licenses from the state board. So we don't see that happening this summer. We just went out to bond for, just to talk a little more financial talk, we went out to bond for the capital projects that passed through town meeting this year, so wastewater, the purchase of the Tea Time property, and that we received that ban, and the interest rate is 1.7%, so excellent, everything's looking good. I wanted you to know that even we haven't received and we won't receive any of the rental tax money until probably the first payment would come to us in December, if then. From the state, it comes quarterly. But the Board of Selectmen has taken my recommendation and my finance director's recommendation to set the benchmark that we'll use any new revenue that we get from either marijuana tax or the new rental tax to add to our stabilization reserves, offset any capital costs, put money in wastewater and building maintenance costs. We have put 100% of the meals tax money that was passed 2 years ago into the stabilization fund, and when that reaches its stated goal, we'll move all that into our offset for our OPEB liability for health insurance. So I just wanted you all to know that it's not going into the general fund, we're not putting it into the general fund, and we're not, just in case the taxes are repealed, we're not counting on that as money that we can just spend freely. And that's a promise. We are developing a town-wide strategic plan to try and help us prioritize what projects should be going on at any given time and what comes first. The Board of Selectmen just received that draft from the Strategic Planning Committee, and basically we should have something to send out to people late this fall and to bring to town meeting next year with some priority goals for the town. And that brings me to another survey we're doing. So this green sheet of paper that's in the back, we're looking for you to do a quick survey on your use of cable TV. It's kind of a boring subject, but the town does receive, where we negotiate a contract with Comcast once every 10 years. And the town receives revenues from Comcast directly after we negotiate this contract that we use to pay for all of the public TV that we offer. So the taping of all of our meetings, all of that is not paid through taxpayer dollars, it's paid through this fund that we get from Comcast. Roughly right now, it's about $100,000 a year that we receive from them for those services and for lower cable TV. So there is a good community benefit to it, so if you take a minute and do the survey, it would really help us out. I'm going to get back to some questions. Oh, I already answered this. I'm sorry. Does the town have adequate procedures in place to avoid having computerized records held hostage by cyber criminals? Well, given that some major corporations and one of the credit rating agencies was hacked, no. Can I tell you that we have adequate, according to my IT director, nothing is adequate. You know how these guys are. But he's protecting our system quite definitely. And we're putting a lot more resources into the protection. We are using a lot more cloud-based services, so there's need for it, and I think that we're doing a very good job. We are investing in both software and hardware and in the system in general. So if it gives you any comfort, the IT director that we have now designed the 911 system for the sheriff for emergency response Cape-wide. So he's very, very comfortable with public safety, IT, and that's certainly the most secure. So I think we're in good hands. Who's responsible for the pruning of trees on a planned island located on a private road? I'm really sorry to say this, but the private road owners should be doing that kind of pruning or tending. And I am going to, with the DPW director, and perhaps we've been talking about having some kind of group meeting about private road issues, what certain private roads are doing and not doing to sort of address these needs, because we have an awful lot of private roads, and I think a lot of people purchase homes here not knowing whether it's a private or a public road, and then they find out later on, oh my God, I'm never going to get my road fixed. So we're going to take some action on this issue. I'm going to figure out a way to do some kind of a betterment so that we can assist private road owners. The black tape. Oh, the black pipe on Bridge Road. We've been talking about this. It's been reviewed by the Board of Selectmen. We keep, I don't know if everyone knows what it is, but the big water pipe that's going across Bridge Road. Unfortunately, we looked at every way during construction to go under or to hide it. It does look awful, I admit it, we all admit it. But we were the last utility, because water came so late to Eastham, we were the last utility going over that bridge, and so all the other utilities have the better spots. So we tried to negotiate with Verizon because they have some conduit, and we said, okay, what would be the cost if you switched places with us and you put your conduit up higher and our pipe can go lower? And the cost was $425,000. And that's kind of where we froze like a deer in the headlights and thought, well, maybe we'll just wait a little bit and see. One of the selectmen had the idea for a contest or to put a sleeve on it, because you can buy these plastic sleeves. So, we may consider some, I don't want to make it worse. It's sort of, right now, I'll put it in the pending category. How much of the town can be supplied from the present well field? Okay, so we have 2 wells now, and in contract 2B, we're going to be putting in our 3rd well. Each of those wells is licensed to produce 1 million gallons of water a day. So we can, once the 3rd well is in, we can produce 3 million gallons of water a day. And since I just memorized my water statistics for you, yesterday I looked at it. Operations-wise, right now, we're using 32 million gallons of water a year. So you do the math. We have a lot of room for expansion of that resource, and that's the purpose of the tanks, is to keep pressure even throughout the system, so that the tanks fill and drain and the water pumps. But it's going along fine right now, and we certainly have great capacity to expand that system. And I think
I have one that I'm
okay.
going to answer.
The chief's ready. That's all I have, and thank you for listening and for my speed answering questions. I hope I got to
First off, I have a phone. I have a picture on it, and I'm trying to find out who that person is, but I can't identify. It was in the ladies' room.
Oh, okay.
Blue bag. Yeah, that's you. We'll get it later, yeah. Just one question here. Somebody had asked about what's the best way to protect their home when they're not there. Are lights enough? That's one thing that would be good. Also, lock your doors. You'd be surprised how many people not only do not lock their doors and shut their windows when they're going to be gone for an extended period of time, and lock the windows and doors, but also don't leave your car open, don't leave your keys in your car. We see people leaving iPods, iPads, computers, all kinds of things, purses, and we'll go there, they'll say, somebody broke into my car. I'll say, did they break into your car? Well, it was open. So that's one thing. But in terms of homes, definitely lock it. An alarm obviously would be a great thing, but I know a lot of people, especially out here, if you have a small cottage, probably are not going to have an alarm. But one thing that a lot of folks are getting, and I would recommend one for you, and I put one on my house, is not just this product, but there's many products like this that are Wi-Fi assisted. The Ring system, which is a doorbell, but it's also a camera. And it hooks right into your Wi-Fi for about $200. You can be anywhere. As long as you have your phone, you can see who's at your door. You can archive any of those videos. So if you have an issue, you're going to know about it. You're going to know who's at your home. They're wonderful. They really work well. So, and then the last question surrounding the same thing is, are cellar doors vulnerable? Well, it depends on the door. Obviously, they're all different, but make sure it has a secure lock on it. And whoever wrote this, if you want us to do an assessment or survey of your home, I can send my Detective Sergeant over, and he'd be happy to walk through it and give you suggestions on how to fortify your home. So, thank you.
Sorry, a couple more, Johanna, and then Shana has one.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to ask and thank our police chief for that, but on the lighting issue, from a wildlife and light pollution perspective, outside lights that shine up and out and glare are a concern for our wildlife and stargazing. So if you want an outside light, I think for security reasons, it's actually better if it's directed down and not out, because when it's up and out, it's bad for wildlife, but also there's a glare, and you can't see what's going on underneath that. And the Appalachian Mountain Cup, one of their scientists did a demonstration that was amazing. He had this, little setup, and you looked at the light, and then he turned it off, and the little people were underneath, like, going by. It was a wonderful demonstration. So a cap over it and down and directed, not out across the marsh or because of the glare. So our owls and our stargazers will appreciate that. Thanks.
So just one last question that we received was, we've been doing beach nourishment every year, and now we have a load of sand on our rock wall. Is it necessary to continue to place more sand when the previous sand is still there? In a word, yes. So for those of you that aren't familiar with beach nourishment, that is the sand that is placed along the rock walls along the bayside in Eastham. And really what that nourishment does is the rock walls are sort of cutting off the natural coastal processes of erosion that would occur in some of our coastal storms. So we may not have had any storms this past spring and winter, thankfully, but it does make up for the sand further down the beach. If you notice, there is no beach at high tide in certain areas, and that's part of the reason. So we need all that sand that we can get, but we can certainly look at this property and take a look and see what we can do. But thank you.
Okay, we're done. I think we're done.
Thank you very much to all of our speakers. A couple of things that I was remiss in not mentioning earlier in the meeting, one of which was to thank all of the board of directors from EPRTA for their volunteer service to this organization. One of our board members, our treasurer actually, Jen Keene, was in the Pan Mass Challenge earlier this month, raised a large amount of money for Dana-Farber, and we're very proud of her for that. Everyone, if you have email notification from our organization, you saw there was a link to the cable TV survey that came in the reminder message for this meeting today. So along with the yellow paper that Jackie mentioned in the back of the room, we also have that link sent to you on your email. The other thing was to piggyback along with Kent's shark speech. In this morning's Cape Cod Times, there was a large article on the front page regarding private pilots who are instituting a watch for sharks from the air that you might find very interesting. So I guess that should do it on the shark issue. Okay, thank you very much for coming this morning. We always appreciate your input. Oh, back to the board thing. Anyone, as it says at the bottom, who is interested in becoming a board member, send an email to member service or contact one of our present board members, and we'd love to have you. So, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the rest of your summer.